If you look at a map, Somaliland sits beside one of the most important shipping routes on earth, the Gulf of Aden, just across from Yemen. On Friday, Israel officially recognized Somaliland, becoming the first UN member state to do so. But why? What is Israel set to gain? What is Somaliland set to gain? Have Israel simply recognized Somaliland because they believe in the principles of sovereignty and self-determination? Or is there something more at play? Let's explore what this recognition means for the Horn of Africa, for the Red Sea, and for wider global competition. Israel's recognition has been welcomed with widespread jubilation in Somaliland, while drawing criticism from China, the Arab world, the Muslim world, and the African Union. To understand why this matters, we need to go back to history. Somaliland was colonized by the British, whereas Somalia was colonized by Italy. At the time, there were two separate territories. In the 1960s, following independence, Somaliland voluntarily entered into a union with Somalia, forming the Somali Republic. This union, however, wasn't to last. Somalilanders complained of political marginalization by the Mogadishu dominant government and felt reduced to second-class status, which worsened after the military takeover of Siad Barre. He waged a ferocious campaign against the Somalilanders. Their main cities like Hargeisa, for example, were bombed and thousands were killed. Siad Barre was eventually deposed and Somaliland opted to become a sovereign state. Ever since, they have functioned as a de facto state with their own currency, their own military, their own constitution, functioning arms of government, and regular elections. They are a relatively stable place compared to Somalia, which has been plagued and gripped by decades of violence and violent Islamist insurgencies driven by Al-Shabaab and now ISIS. Despite their many years of stability and functionality as a de facto state, no UN member state country had recognized them until Israel did on Friday. Now, what are the implications of this and what drives Israel's motives? To understand this, you only need to look at a map to know that Somaliland sits at a very strategic geopolitical location. Their coastline runs along the Gulf of Aden, which is a stone's throw away from Bab el-Mandeb, one of the world's busiest maritime routes. 12% of global trade passes this corridor. Disrupting it could impact consumer goods and global energy prices, for example. Also across from Somaliland sits Yemen and the north of Yemen that's controlled by the Houthis. Since the war in Gaza, the Houthis have repeatedly targeted not only Israeli ships, but ships destined towards Israel's port as part of the response. Israeli-bound ships were forced to reroute. By recognizing Somaliland, Israel can establish a military base there, giving them closer access to Yemen for surveillance, for example, to protect ships that are passing through, and for intelligence-related matters. It also provides them much closer proximity to target the Houthis militarily. Secondly, there's a matter of settlement. There have been claims and counterclaims that Israel intensively displaced and resettled the Palestinians to Somaliland. Here's a video of the Somali president speaking on this.
Three important steps has been agreed with the Somaliland. Number one is the relocation of the Palestinians to the territory. And number three is providing a military base, Israel, in the Gulf of Aden coast. And number three is Somaliland to join the Abraham Accord. That's the three demands of Israel, and Somaliland has accepted. That's what.
Beyond Yemen, Israel's move also intersects with Turkey's expanding influence, not only in the Horn of Africa, but the Middle East, especially with Israel's neighbor Syria. Turkey operates its largest military base in Somalia. They train Somali forces. They manage major infrastructural projects, such as Somalia's port. Somaliland, by contrast, sits outside Turkey's orbit. For Israel, this recognition aims to counterbalance and curtail Turkey's growing influence in the Horn of Africa as tensions continue to heighten between the two countries. And then there is China. Just west of Somaliland lies Djibouti, home to China's first overseas military base, and also a critical hub for Chinese naval operations. Djibouti also hosts American, Japanese, Italian, and French bases. For America, China's stronghold in Djibouti has become problematic. Take a look at this report on the Congress website, addressing warnings of China's growing influence of Djibouti. For America, this reliance on Djibouti has been seen as a strategic vulnerability. US lawmakers like Ted Cruz have urged Washington to consider recognizing Somaliland, arguing that stability and democratic governance should be rewarded. The Conservative Policy Blueprint, Project 2025, also references Somaliland, framing recognition as a way to counter China's regional footprint. For America, recognizing Somaliland would come with angering their regional allies and causing a frosty relationship with Somalia. So, what better way to do so than through Israel, its closest and most important ally? So, Israel is open to gaining a lot, but what gains are there for Somaliland? At the moment, not much. Yes, recognition by Israel may potentially lead to more countries coming on board to also officially recognize them. But at present, the chances of this happening are slim, given the robust condemnations by many Arab Muslim states and the African Union. For the African Union, states must be recognized along colonial geographic lines. The ways the borders were drawn during the colonial period and subsequent to that must be maintained so as not to open a Pandora's box of separatist movements. Encouraging and recognizing Somaliland as a separate and sovereign state provides other separatist movements in Africa, such as Biafra, Casamas, the Tuaregs wanting Azawad, with fervor to accomplish their goals. For Somaliland, however, official recognition means the world to them. It comes with a potential of being welcomed into the international fold, of having bilateral and diplomatic relationships. It gives them access to foreign aid and a host of other things, even if it means Al-Shabaab opens a front at their doorstep, as they recently threatened, or it means being disdained by the world, not for the fact that they were recognized, but by the idea that such recognition came from Israel, a country that has actively denied Palestinians of the very same right